everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I am going to be taking a quick break from my Christmas Gilded Age Victorian bustle dress project, which you can see behind me there. If you haven't seen those videos yet, go ahead and check those out, linked down in the description. But I'm taking a quick break from those this week because I want to make myself a Christmas dress that I can wear every day. Okay, maybe not like every day, but you know, frequently, often, incorporate into my normal wardrobe. So that is what I'm going to be making today in this video. And bonus, it's upcycled. So a couple of weeks ago, I found this tablecloth right here at a thrift store. And this is a 100% cotton tablecloth. It is pretty darn big. I mean, this is the width of it, and then the length is this times 2. So it's really big, and it is such a beautiful red, green, white plaid. I think it's going to make a really, really pretty Christmas dress. And if you know me, you know that I am obsessed with jumper dresses. I love them so much. I wear them so often. The only reason that I'm not wearing one today is because I don't have a Christmas jumper dress. And I need to remedy that situation. So that's what we're making in this video. We are going to make a Christmas themed jumper dress out of this thrifted tablecloth. And I am going to go back to one of my favorite patterns for this, which is the princess seam pattern that I have used for my various gunny sacks inspired dresses. And in fact, I also used this pattern for my winter upcycled jumper dress that I made last year, which I will link in this video right up here and also down below in the description. So I've used this pattern a few times before and it fits really, really great. And that's why it's one that I just knew that I wanted to use for this. That said, I'm obviously going to complicate things a bit because it's princess seamed and this is plaid, and princess seams don't like plaid. So we're gonna see how this goes, but let's go ahead and dive right into this project. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to decide with this skirt. With my jumper from last year, I just gathered the waist, but I was thinking either like pleats would look really nice because pleats always look so nice with plaid. So like that is a possibility. Or the other possibility is that I think I actually have enough fabric where I could do it as like a circle skirt. The one thing about plaid with circle skirts is, of course, like you're gonna get the plaid directional in the front and in the back, but then like by the time you get to side seams, you are going to be looking at an angle. And I don't know if I want that or don't want that. Either way, I probably don't have enough fabric to like match my plaid on the seams. So that's the thing. If I did it pleated, it would be 3 panels that would be gored, as in they go out further at the bottom than they do at the top, and otherwise it would be 2 panels circle skirt. So I have to decide which one I want to do. So I was looking online at some various like inspiration type dresses for 2 reasons. 1, the pleated skirt versus circle skirt, and 2, if I wanted to do any of the bodice on the bias so that I get like the diagonal of the plaid. And I have decided pleated skirt for 1 because I think that pleated plaid skirts just look so good. And I did kind of a test. I don't know if you can see it that well, but just on the form back there where I actually pinned together the skirt at the bias and took a look at like what that looked like, because I know that I've got some part of the skirt obviously that will be on the bias on the seams, and I think it looks just fine. It's really not that significant. And so then I started turning my attention to the bodice, because since I'm using so much of the fabric for the skirt, I have to really keep in mind that I need to be able to cut the bodice out, and I don't think I'm going to have like length left in the length of the fabric. I'm gonna need to cut it out of like the wedges on the sides of the skirt pieces, because there's 3 skirt pieces. So I really need to cut out the bodice first. I'm not going to do a mock-up because I have used this pattern a whole lot. It has not changed. I have checked it with the snowflake dress from last year. The only change that I made for that was I dropped down the neckline of the centerpiece. All right, so I actually already recorded this segment that I'm about to talk to you about, but my camera decided to just like not save it. So I apologize if I skip anything because I already said this to you and you just didn't get to hear it. But basically I was taking a look at the bodice from last year's jumper dress that I used with this pattern, and the only change that I made to the pattern was I dropped the neckline down, and I do like this drop neckline. So I'm gonna do that again with this one, but otherwise, because this still fits great, and the pattern is this, I don't have to make a mock-up, I can just use the pattern itself. Also, I'm not going to have to put a zipper in it because I didn't put a zipper in this dress. So that's going to be great. So I mentioned that I was taking a look at where I wanted potentially to use bias on the bodice just for some visual interest. So I was taking a look at different images, like on Google Images, just inspiration type dresses, and looking like, okay, what happens if I use bias either on the sides of the princess seams or in the center front? And on the sides, I do like that look better, but I feel like it never matches up right with the front plaid on the seams, and it just looks kind of janky and out of whack, and I don't like that look. So I'm not going to do that. And then with the front, as far as like putting that on the bias, I feel like a lot of times it just kind of winds up looking like you've got this big old like X in the front, and I don't want that either. So I'm just going to attempt to match the plaids, even though it'll be across princess seams. I don't know how well that will work because I have limited fabric. So we'll have to see, but I'm going to go ahead now and lay out my fabric. I did, by the way, undo the hems of the tablecloth just to give myself actually 2 inches extra on each of the sides. So that is definitely helpful because I had a really deep hem. And I'm going to lay out everything on my table and attempt to cut the skirt pieces and the bodice pieces at the same time so that I can make sure everything actually fits, which is really challenging, and ideally to make sure that the plaids match. So wish me luck. I'm gonna go cut things out. So let's talk about this pattern matching situation here. I've already cut out the like side front of the bodice as well as 2 of the 3 skirt panels. So what we're looking at back here is an area where I've actually laid out one of the skirt panels on top of the other. Now the front skirt panel, which you're not seeing here, is actually a little bit wider because it went the full width over here. I didn't cut out any pieces next to it. However, then I realized that's just not going to be possible. I mean, I realized it before I cut it out, but it's not going to be possible for the 2 side / back pieces. There's a center back seam, so they're both side back pieces. And these pieces just weren't going to be able to be as wide because I needed room to cut out bodice pieces. So again, I've already cut this one out. I cut this out next to the second piece. Now I'm trying to cut out the back and the center front. I thought that I might be able to cut out the center front because remember I have shortened it. It actually goes to this line right here. I thought I was going to be able to maybe cut that out of the space down here below. Guess what's an inch too short? So yeah, I can't cut it out if I want it to be the same direction. I could cut it out across, but I think that's going to be far worse than trying to do any other way. However, so it needs to be cut on the fold, but I only need 1 of them. So this area that is like to the side of the skirt piece right here, this area on the bottom is actually just about wide enough to cut this out. If you notice right here, I actually do not have it folded end to end because I realized that if I did that, the pattern would not be a match. So you see how the pattern is a match here. If I had brought it all the way to here, we would have been off. So like we would have been on this way, but off this way. And in my opinion, it's important to be on in both directions if you can. So this right here is the only area where I can cut the center back pieces. Now, the center back pieces, there's absolutely no way to match this up because I just don't have enough fabric. So this bit right here is not going to match this bit right here. But you know what? It's under my arm. I don't know why people would be looking under my arm. That's not a big deal. That's not where we really care about. What we really care about is this right here, this princess seam. This is ideally what we want to match. So what I have just done is I took my pattern piece here and I actually went in and I laid it out on top of the piece that I'd already cut out, the side front bodice. And I just marked every time I've got these 2 double white lines, I marked a little dash on each side. And that way I would know where I want those lines to be here. So I don't care about it matching up like side to side, but I do want it to be like parallel across because I think that would be a pretty big deal. Now, the unfortunate bit is when I first looked at this, I was like, oh yeah, it fits no problem if it starts right up here, butting up against this piece. However, what you might notice if I do that is that these are not at all a match. And it's more important to me to have these be a match than to have the complete width of the skirt. So actually, I am going to cut this skirt just a little bit narrower. It doesn't need to be very much. We're talking like probably about a half an inch, maybe up to an inch, but probably just about a half an inch narrower of a skirt. And what I'll probably do, honestly, is I will probably cut it the same width up at the top and then just narrow it out a little bit as it goes down to the fullness of the skirt. And yes, I am flipping things, like the bodices are going this way, one skirt piece is going this way, the other ones are going this way, because the plaid is actually the same top to bottom. So that's nice. It makes things a little bit easier. That way I can flip these pattern pieces upside down and right sides up. So I need to match these up, which means we need to basically have them like this, making sure, of course, that this is still on the straight of grain, which means that I need extra width across this way. And remember, I can cut this all the way out here. I've lost my table, so I won't be able to like cut it while it's right here, but I can line it up and draw my lines in. And so that would be about there. My center is going to be the center of this dark green line right here. And I want to make sure that that I just realized something as I'm doing this. I was thinking, oh, I want to make sure that this dark green line is my center. But actually, that would make these not even across, because I would have this be in like the middle of a pattern. Oh, shoot. Okay, I might have to reevaluate this just a little bit, because this is going to put my pattern off center, and that's going to really annoy me. I definitely want this to be center. So, yeah. Hold that thought. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, and this is still kind of an experiment phase, but I know for a fact the only place that I can get this cut out is right here with the fabric laid out this way like it currently is. However, I have flexibility in the skirt, and I have flexibility in the center front in a totally different way than I have in the skirt. I have a lot of flexibility in the skirt because the skirt does not have to line up with this. And frankly, I don't even have to have the skirt centered on this, because like that's going to be randomly in the middle of like my hip. Like it doesn't have to be centered on a fold. I did do it already on this piece, but it doesn't have to be over here, because once I cut this out, which does have to mirror itself or else it's going to look weird. Once I cut that out, then I can take this skirt right here, I can refold my fabric differently. So I could either bring it to the edges, which I don't think is the right answer here. I think the right answer is to bring this back. So we're going to move our fold, like roll it back that way. And we're going to bring basically the corner of this to here. So it's still going to match up top to bottom, because that's the important part, but it's not going to match up side to side, and that does not matter. And that is going to give me extra width going around this way, where I can ideally center my front piece on something. We'll see what. I don't know what it might be, but I will be able to center it hopefully on something. The other option, of course, is to cut this out of a contrast fabric. Like I could cut this out of maybe this color red or a green, or even like a black or a velvet or something. Velvet does mean that it's less likely to be able to be thrown in the washing machine, which I would like, even though velvet would be like so freaking pretty and very gunny sacks as well. But yeah, I don't think I want to do velvet, but like I could do another cotton. I've got so much fabric here that I'm sure that I can find something, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I really do want to cut this out in the plaid if I can. So again, I'm going to cut this part out. We're going to shift our fabric around, and we're going to see how we can get this cut. So I'm sure that you've already thought about this, but I didn't. The top part I was cutting like right at the edge. So even though I do have room down here that I can play with the side bit down here, this is right at the corner, and this is like less than an inch from this corner. So like I can't really move this, fold this in a different way, which I didn't think about. So now I'm wondering, maybe I should do a red section in the middle. I've just kind of like put this fabric here. I haven't cut it yet, but this is a red cotton sateen. I think, to be honest, it may actually have a little stretch to it. This is left, oh yep, there's a little, it's a stretch sateen, but it's cotton with just like a little bit of spandex. This is left over from a Snow White Disney bound dress that I made in like 2013 or 2014. And with these like little black buttons up the front, it does look really cute. And I could maybe do like a little trim over here too. Obviously I also wouldn't have to worry about matching plaid, plaids. It looks kind of like a little waistcoaty, which I think is really cute. My one hesitation is that I'm worried that it kind of would A, be a really big focal point that I don't know if I want, and B, that it might limit like what I can wear it with, because if such a significant part of this is red, for example, then I'm not going to want to wear like a red shirt underneath this, which I otherwise probably would want to. So yeah, that is kind of my one hesitation, but I'm just not really seeing a way otherwise that I can cut this, other than if I piece this into two pieces and I don't cut it on the fold. That way I could still do it. So I'm almost tempted to make both, like to do this, or maybe just to cut it with a seam down the center front first, see what I think about that, if it bothers me or not. If it doesn't bother me, then I'll go with it. If it does bother me, then I'll go this route. I think that might be the best course of action. Not me realizing after cutting out a two-piece center front that actually the cross grain, it's the same plaid. Yeah, so I'm gonna cut out a center front out of this that's just cross grain, and I don't think anyone's gonna know the difference. Everything is now cut out, and I've also flatlined the bodice pieces. You might recognize this fabric if you've been following me a while, because this is from my Gunny Saxmas dress from a couple years ago. But yeah, it's all flatlined with the serger, and now it is ready for assembly. Darts in these back pieces, and then everything else gets sewn together. I've got some pocket pieces mixed in over here, and I'll be putting the pockets in the skirt side seams as well. Here is the bodice front. As you can see, it's a pretty decent plaid match. I mean, it can't be perfect, honestly, because they are at different angles with each other. They're curved. So that's why, like, this one starts below this line, for example, and then by the time it's down here, it's above this line. And there's just no way to make it closer than that. But like overall, pretty close. I think I'm going to be happy with that. I do really appreciate that this is centered now. Like, I think that looks really good. So yeah, bodice was a success. Thank goodness I was able to turn this on the opposite direction of the fabric and make it work. So this is what it looks like at the moment. We have all of the skirt pieces together, all of the bodice pieces together. Now it is time to pleat up the skirt to make it fit the bodice. So I have gone in with bias tape, and I have bound all of the edges of the neckline and the arm size and everything. I've bound that all with just pre-made bias tape. I do bind this section right here separately. So I actually bind this first, fold it over, and then with the seam here, like the attaching seam to the side fronts, I actually sew that into the bias. So that's what you're seeing right there. That is that seam. And then I just fold over the edges so everything's nice and neat. I didn't think when I was cutting the lining fabric out, I forgot that this was going to get pressed open. So unfortunately we see the ugly selvage in there instead of just fully the plaid. But yeah, everything is now bound there, and the skirt is also now all attached to the bodice. So all of these pleats were just done freehand. Like, I did make sure that this side would match up with this side, but I didn't measure any of the pleats. I just eyeballed them. I feel like with plaid, it makes it a little bit easier. And actually, I didn't even press them until after I had attached it. And then I just kind of went around with steam and a light iron and kind of did this sort of smoothing action. My one kind of question mark is, I don't know how much I really like this square right there in the center front, but I wanted my pleats to go out that way, which meant that I'd have to have that kind of reverse box pleat here. I just didn't realize it would wind up with a big square centered. So when I put that on, I'm going to see how it looks, but I am going to now put this on so that I can check to see if the hem is level or if we got any bias dropout on our seams. So yeah, let's check that hem. Please forgive my very messy floor, but I think I'm seeing a tiny bit of bias drop literally like right where the seam is, and I think I'm also seeing that in the back if I can show you in the mirror, but yeah, not too bad. So I think the hem will just be able to basically be turned twice, and then right where that seam hits, maybe a little bit needs to be cut off, but tiny bit. I'll probably just measure like how long is, you know, the center front, which is on the grain, versus how long is the bias, and then cut off that difference down at the bottom. but that is what we are looking like at the moment. And on, I don't really feel like I'm kind of minding that square because I think it's just giving a very vertical look down the front and instead of just like square. So yeah, I think on that is okay. So let's talk about this dress. Overall, I am super, super happy with how this turned out. I think the one thing that I need to do is I didn't get quite as good of a press on the bust seams as I should have. So I'm gonna press that a little bit more. They just feel like a little bit bumpy. And I mean, I don't cut away the extra seam allowance when I am doing princess seams. And so it's really important to press them super well. And I think mine just needed a tiny bit more press. But overall, I love this. Honestly, this cotton fabric is like so soft, but also like thick at the same time. I don't know, it's just so nice. I guess it's your standard cotton tablecloth, but I just really, really like it. And I love the colors. I did realize when I was trying to figure out what shirt to wear this with today, I did realize that I almost did an accidental Molly school dress bound because it's pretty similar to her school dress. And so when I thought about pairing this with like a white kind of Peter Pan collared shirt with puffy sleeves, I was like, oh, now it looks like Molly's school dress. So at least I have that in my arsenal, you know, if I were to need Molly's school dress. Hers is really more like green and red on white as opposed to white and green on red, but it's kind of close. But overall, I can see myself wearing this like so much. Probably, honestly, both during Christmas and not during Christmas, because after all, it's just a plaid jumper dress, right? It's kind of like a schoolgirl dress, if you will. I do really love the fact that I pleated this one instead of gathering it. I think that pleats on plaid just look so good and so sharp, and so I really, really like that. And yeah, overall, it's just like so soft and comfy and so wonderfully Christmassy. So it really brings me a lot of joy. So let me know if you have any fun Christmas sewing projects that you have planned this year, maybe that you've already made. Let me know what those are and how they're going. And if it is something that you've already finished, please feel free to send me a picture over on Instagram. Send me a DM with a picture because I would love to see it. I love to know what you all are working on. But that's going to be it for me today. So if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional contents out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Janelle. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing and happy holidays!